This is Valley of Tears by MMP Games, part of the Battalion Combat Series. We're looking at the situation for both fronts at the end of turn 5. If we look at the Sinai, the Israelis have got quite a lot of units here. Pretty much all the units they are going to have on the board here. I think there's about one more Israeli unit of any size available. There's lots of little units that are dribbling in slowly but surely as the reserves are fully mobilised. In terms of the actual fighting, the Israelis are still struggling really badly, trying to overcome these Saga support systems to such an extent that Israel's also in a situation where they've got a lot of fatigue on many of their units, and they're considering, well, they've taken 2 recovery activations on units this turn, so they're looking at regrouping. In terms of the actual Egyptians, the Egyptians are letting their infantry cover the front line, and their armour is either in like reserve behind, or armour which is actually part of the divisions, is what's left of it is just been put back behind the front, and let the infantry and the sagas deal with the Egyptian tanks. All in all, the air game, they only managed to get a snafu of -1 on the Egyptians this turn, and the Egyptians have been pushing forward to their objectives. They really want to catch as many objectives as they can, and that I think will be the main activity on this front in the coming few days. I think Israel are going to sit off a bit and let the Egyptians try and expand their victory point capability. You can see at the moment all these red X's here with the discs in them. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They've got 7 victory points, which is pretty good. And you also get victory points for actually having divisions fully across the river of the canal. So there's 5 victory points for that as well. So it'd be interesting with this game is it's going to have to simulate the Egyptian, the disastrous Egyptian attack into the Sinai, which was done a couple of weeks in. They only did it because the situation on the Golan got so bad that they had to do something to try and take the pressure off the Golan. Now, I noticed with this game system you can't move between fronts, so you can't really simulate this. It's going to be interesting to see how this game simulates that, because if you don't, Egypt can just turtle here. Admittedly, Israel would then have to try and make a canal crossing, probably somewhere down here. This axis here, we could take out those 3 victory point things and get across the canal here. There's lots of Israeli victory point hexes on the other side of the canal. It's interesting if you were going to try and reproduce history, how that's going to trigger. If we look at the Golan front, again, there's been a lot of air power available this time, and people are experimenting using destruction barrages to blast their way through positions. It works if you do it, if you get it reasonably. You often end up sacrificing a step, maybe even 2 steps of attacking units to get that, to actually blast a defensive unit to pieces. But it's worked occasionally, and other times it's not been totally successful. If we look at the the fighting here, the big problem the Syrians have got is that their army just isn't as good as the Egyptians. So even with the sagas, they've moved all their sagas into support roles now, which they weren't originally assigned in support. That was a big mistake. But that's just the way the game was set up. I only cottoned on how effective sagas were looking at the situation on the Sinai front. So the thing with the Syrians here, they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is it 7? 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. They've got 7 hexes, victory point hexes here, which is enough. That gives you a victory on the Golan but that can be overturned if the Israelis manage to drive the Syrians back and capture a certain number of hexes. On the other side of the purple line border, that will mean they would get victory. Now, Syrians, their armour, their infantry divisions have got an armoured brigade, or an enhanced armoured brigade in support in all of them, but that armour's been chewed to pieces. It really, really has been decimated. But they've still got 2 armoured divisions on the front. They've got 1 in strategic reserve here, and 1 that's committed in the centre. The situation in the south is they're really getting threadbare, and the Israelis have put a lot of pressure onto them. The other thing the Israelis done, they had quite a lot of reserve reinforcements arriving, and they also got 2 elite para brigades arriving on the front. So that's really shifted the balance of power in favour of Israel. So yet again, the Israelis they've got high fatigue rate here, so they're going to have to take a recovery. You don't have to take it straight away, but it'd be a good idea to do so. The fatigue level 2 here isn't brilliant, so I suspect that what's going to happen next turn is the Israelis are going to attempt some sort of offensive move, or maybe just bolster up the flanks, put a recovery in the centre here, and then launch an offensive to see if they can just rip through the Syrian front line. All in all, people got to start thinking about victory points and how they're going to win this game. Admittedly, there's quite a few turns to go. You've got about another 15 turns theoretically if you went all the way up to the second ceasefire. But the situation is still favourable to the Arabs at this particular point in time, but I expect things to turn, certainly on the Golan, though I'm not so sure about what's going to happen on the Sinai. That one's a bit of that's really dependent on how this game plays, the mechanics of this game play out.